Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the three movement and variations of them that I like to use to base build people's lower body up. And when I say this, I don't want this to mean that this is exclusively what we use, because obviously you guys see me and both of the clients who you see featured up here. You've seen all of us do belt squats, leg presses, glute ham raises, reverse hyper, stuff like that very, very regularly in our training. But we're all very advanced lifters, right? These are all advanced lifters, everyone you see featured here, which is me, Mike, Michelle, throughout this video. But I want people to understand that when it comes to base building someone, maybe they don't have access to a glute ham raise, they don't have a reverse hyper, they don't have any of this stuff, right? In that case, what would I use to build them up? Well, quite simply, variations of these three movements: the squat, bench, deadlift, and good morning. And we count all of these as primary exercises. You guys will notice a lot of my lifters and me do maxes on good mornings. And I've shown you guys examples in the past. If you've looked around or watched for it, I have some clients who do good mornings with 500 plus pounds. Right, just like you guys have seen me do them with 500 plus pounds. We absolutely have clients who do the same thing. Never had a client do 600 pounds yet that want one. Kind of be a cool goal. But this is what you see. And when I say we use these movements for the base building, it means that we do max effort variations on them. And I can do this with a novice. In fact, my more novice lifters on conjugate, if they don't have a reverse hyper or a glute ham raise, this is what we see them using. And I'll have them find ways to find bands, to get chains. You'd be surprised how easy it is to set up bands even in a commercial gym. Right? And we can use bands, reverse bands, all that stuff for these movements. It's real easy to get a lot of variations. Very, very easy. Especially once you figure out how to hook up bands. Again, between the bands and reverse bands, we get a lot of variations. Anyone who has access to specialty bars, we can get a lot of variations. If you have a deadlift bar and a power bar at your gym, that's two different deadlifts for each of these. And you'll notice that a lot of my people pull both conventional and sumo. A perfect example, these two lifters. I don't do a lot of sumo anymore, and it just has to do with the fact that the way I squat and deadlift, there's just no point in me doing it. I don't get as much out of it, and I'm not worried so much about strengthening my hips and stuff any further. They do quite well just from these other movements. It's just me personally. But for most of my lifters, we'll do all these things. And so by base building on these, it means we can do stuff like max effort squatting every week or every other week, and alternate it with deadlifts, good mornings. And some of my really advanced power lifters, and I can do this with some novices too, we'll max on a squat and a hip hinge, which would mean a deadlift or a good morning of some type, every single week. Okay, that's a lot of our base building. We will tend to do a lot of rep work with the good mornings. I don't have most of my lifters these days, unless they're running a 5-3-1 type template or something of that nature, I actually don't have them rep the back squat. We will use box squats, or we will use normal back squats, preferably against bands or chains if they are available, for speed work, right? And we'll do speed work on a separate day. So we will do a squat and a deadlift both on those days every single week. And oftentimes, again, if the lifters do not have access to the other equipment, GHR, reverse hyper, we will do good mornings on both of those days for rep work, for sets of 10. And we'll try to get progressively stronger on that, because the good morning will build that. So people also say, well, what about extra quad work? Well, that's where sleds come in. Give me a little bit of sled work on top of that, and someone with even the most basic of equipment, we can push them a long way. And sleds are very, very cheap. It's not hard to find places to drag sleds. A surprising number of clients have access to sleds in their gyms these days. You're seeing more and more gyms that have sleds available, sleds, prowlers, things like that. Sleds are very, very cheap, getting a couple weight plates, because you don't need that much. Most people out there, a single 25 or a 45 pound plate will go pretty far for sled dragging. Again, if you just get one of the cheap flat bottom sleds to drag around in the grass, find a patch of grass near your home, even your backyard, and drag it back and forth. Okay, we start adding sled work to this. We add sled work to this, and we're in a very, very good spot, because that will complete whatever quad development we need. The speed work will actually build quads better than people seem to realize if you do it right. You throw in sled dragging a couple days a week, and we're golden. Your quads are sorted. And if you look at everything else, we have pretty good hamstring, glute, erector, adductor development from these movements. And these can be utilized in this way. And again, I've taken quite a few lifters who do not have this other stuff, and I've built them up. I've built people up to 500-pound squats who we don't even do leg presses. We don't do rep work on squatting, single leg exercises, any of that, because it's not necessary for that lifter. Their quads are not always the weak link. They're not always the weak link. And particularly if they learn how to really power squat, may not be that big of a deal. They'll get enough quad development off this other stuff, and if they throw sled work in, we're in a good position. It's really only lifters who aren't going to drag a sled. Maybe they need a little leg press early on, we'll do that. But given a preference, I would much rather focus on the posterior chain, focus on the max work, the speed work, than use sleds to build up their quads. Because simply put, sled work is, in terms of, we have the GBP benefit, and then we have the benefit of it doesn't have any axial loading component. Right? It has no axial loading component. It still will build the quads in the manner that we want for both the squatting and the deadlifting. Even though there isn't necessarily the deep knee bend, we still get hypertrophy. And even though we could discuss the joint angle specificity, all hypertrophy matters, and you're still going to activate those fibers in that deeper position. But what I also find is that lifters who end up a lot of times with patellar tendonitis or inflammation in that area, if we only do speed squats and sled work, it tends to go away, or it tends to never develop. Like if they just get general inflammation at the knee, the problem goes away, because we're limiting the number of deep bends to just maximum force production, either through speed work or through max work, which will still train what we want the nervous system to do there. So these are methods that I find very effective, very easy to program, and it works for people with more limited equipment. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.